What's up, everybody? Welcome to Blackballed. When I was in my 30s, I guess, I was at a party and I did what I thought was a big line of blow, but it turned out it was a line of meth. And I was like up for 3 days. During which there was one point where I found myself in the kitchen, and I know I had been there for a long time. And the reason I was there is because I was negotiating with these tiny little things. They look like just blurs, blobs, I don't know, little furry things or something. They weren't really all that clear. I had to go to the bathroom, but they were there sort of impeding me. And the understanding I had with them is that we hadn't negotiated a way for me to go to the bathroom yet. Which brings me to the reason why our next two guests are here. They are people who worked alongside John McAfee, that is Rob Rogers, and Josh Kowalchuck. Is that how you say it?
Kowalchuck. That's close
Kowalchuck.
enough.
Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah, so you guys, so some will recognize Rob from the Dean Blundell show. We've had you on, what, 2 or 3 times? Something like that?
2 times.
2 times. And I've been talking to you for a while, and I don't know. The reason why I opened with that is because John McAfee is a legendary drug user. Like a consumer like no other. Like he almost grew a trunk. He did so much cocaine. So, Rob, I'll start with you. I want this entire episode not to deviate away into like antics that had nothing to do with drug. I want to stay on the drug use stuff because I don't think people really like his life was like was it Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but like all the time, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. From what we gathered, yeah.
Yep.
Rob, give me an example. Anything. Except for the shit hammock. I don't want to hear about the shit hammock.
You're the first person who hasn't wanted to hear about the shit hammock.
I heard about it, and I'm good.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah. No defecation, please.
I'm just thinking of which one I should do that Josh wasn't there for. There was one time, I'm just thinking of what's a really good one. In Vegas, he was just fucked right out of his mind when we were there. Sorry for swearing on your podcast, but he was just...
Yeah, can you keep the fucking language to like a minimum amount of fucks and shits, please? Thank you. Your sponsors watching.
I'll try.
Okay, go ahead.
So yeah, I guess I'll probably start with one of the times at Vegas. So he's just completely... He's on something. And he comes up to me, and I'm by the elevators. And I'm drinking Guinness. And he comes up to me, and he's looking around, and he's sweating. I don't know what he's on, but he's on something. And he just stares me straight in the eye, and he goes, "Have you ever wanted to just fuck every single living thing that you've ever seen before?" And then I'm just like, what the heck? No, I haven't.
Well, I could have handled that question.
He walked away. That one was pretty weird. It was one of those things where if you saw it, you'd
yeah, and that uppers. So he liked uppers, basically.
He liked a little bit of everything. So 2 experiences that I can recall that definitely stand out in this aspect. So we had to get into the office at around 9 a.m. I think was when we had to clock in, 9:30, something like that. And so we show up, and this was we're told John's in town, so come. Don't dress like a slob, come in. Okay, our job usually consisted of us just sitting at a desk in front of a bunch of computer screens and a bunch of boards and stuff all over the place. And I had a laser cutter beside me we used for development as well. But so I'm sitting there doing my work, and I'm expecting, this would have been, I think, the 4th time or 3rd time I met John when this occasion happened. And so I'm sitting at my desk like I normally do, doing my thing, and here comes the convoy of John, and John Poole comes in first. That was his security guard, this really great guy, and John comes in following him, and you expect a guy who's worth a couple $1 million or more. You sell your product to Intel for $400 million. You think you'd show up at your new company wearing more than mustard stained sweatpants and sweatshirt, like just gray, like traditional gray dirty looking, just disgusting, right? And it's like, holy shit. And he comes in and he walks in through the door and he's shaking. And I'm like I kind of watching him, right? And I don't know when I should. John Poole and the people are talking to him a little bit, and like, yo, John, everything all right? Everything okay? And I was like, oh yeah, just hold on. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a little thing of tinfoil and opens it up, and he's shaking, like just crazy. And I'm like, okay, and like, everything all right? Can I get you some water? He doesn't say nothing, and he takes this tinfoil and just right in his face. It looked like blow, it looked like Coke, some sort of white powder. I don't know what. But immediately after that, shaking stops. He goes over to the fridge, okay, because our office had fancy tastes, and John was no different. So and this is like 9:30 in the morning. He then proceeds to have 8 shots of Patron Silver, and probably not just an ounce shot, but like boom, 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 right? And then shaking kind of stopped, and he's like, okay, I'm ready. Now I'm ready to have smokes. And that was another thing. He was always smoking all the time. I smoke as well, but
He's
not like John McAfee smokes. But
Christopher Hitchens used to say that smoking was like the slut of addictions, because it goes with everything. If you want sex, you want to smoke afterwards. If you want to drink, you want to smoke. You want Coke, you want to smoke. You want anything, and so it's like the life of the party. The cigarette. That's
beers and smokes. I know what you mean.
So there's people in this room that are like working for him, and they see him do this. How is it that there was an environment created where everyone just went, meh, that's just John? Like, how does that happen?
I think you have to be John McAfee, and you just have to have that reputation. Like, the guy was already well known for being insane, and
it kind of looks like, no offense, Rob, but it kind of looks like you were the guy that sold him the drugs, just in the frame that you're in right now. Yeah.
Oh no, I don't do drugs. Smoked a lot of cigarettes though, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was that for sure. You look like APOC right
now. Another story I can recall was just reflect on cigarettes. This was one thing about McAfee I remember. It was an important day. This was at the company we were working for was heavily involved with Bitcoin as well, and we had North America's largest Bitcoin operation going at one point. And John, he's the captain of the ship, if you will. And he shows up at the office again, right? You could tell he's already fucked up. It's in the morning, this was a day when we had investors over, right? Like, there was like big money in the room. Okay, so like these guys, like I was told, like, wear a dress shirt, which is never. I don't like dress shirts. I don't like ties. I don't like that shit. Look at how I'm dressed right now. For fuck's sakes, this is how I wear every day. I dress to be comfortable. I don't. But anyway. So we're all dressed up, this, that, and the other, and here comes John. He comes in just, oh yeah, ready. He's not dressed up in the fanciest thing, just like, something pretty straightforward. Like it wasn't a suit, it wasn't even a dress up shirt. I can't remember, but at least it wasn't stained with mustard or anything like that I recall. But so we walk into this room. Over on the the boardroom that we were doing the meeting in was adjacent to where our actual office was. It was like the building's boardroom, and we got to use it. And so inside this room, there's probably at least $30,000 in suits sitting around the table. So lots of people, like lots of big money, right? And
somewhere in Italian just went Chandali.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So here comes McAfee.
There goes APOC.
Comes in, sits down. Everyone's, oh, yay, applause. Everyone on the screen. They had a screen up of other people. Everyone's like, oh, yay, John here. Just sits down, just lights a cigarette. Just lights a smoke. Right in the office, like, sir, you can't smoke here. He's like, no, I'm John McAfee. Give me a fine.
That's where Dave Chappelle got it from.
Oh, yeah.
It's the John McAfee maneuver, which is just basically this. Oh, yeah, too bad.
He just didn't care. It's like rules just didn't apply for him, and it showed a lot through as interesting as it was working for him, and all the experiences and things that went down. Like, of course, Rob, he got a little more of that in the whole kidnapping and everything. I remember that day, and Rob told me he was doing.
Josh, he lived to tell the tale. He lived to tell it.
That's exactly it. But even when you first were going to go down there, I even said that's not a good idea. And then you're like, oh, like I told, like Rob, he called me at like 10:30 or whatever, wanted to show up there, and I'm like, that's not a smart idea. I would take a hotel and go in the morning, because knowing John and his associates, who knows what the fuck they're up to at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and some random Canadian knocking on the door. Like, John wouldn't even probably remember that he invited you that day, probably. Who the hell knows? Who knows what he was on at that time, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you know what? You might as well, Rob, tell like an encapsulated version of that story with the mic closer to your face, if possible. I did, because I don't know how many people you told it on the Dean Blundell podcast, but I just want people to like understand the rational person that you were working for, and what happened when you skip the minutia. You went down because he invited you down, and you showed up at the house.
Back
To what?
all my projects were back on.
Right. Okay. Then you went to the house, and then you walked in, and
Knock out the door, and this dude comes out named I'm not going to say his name just so that he doesn't surprise me at my house. This dude comes out with a gun. He grabs it off a table, I think, or it was in a holster. He had that gun in like 2 seconds flat after he came down the stairs, and he just runs towards the door. He opens it up. He starts pointing this gun at my head like this far away. Well, first he was like this far away with it, and then he asked who I was and identified myself, and then he got way more aggressive. He takes the gun. He starts holding it straight to my forehead. He's yelling at me about stuff. I'm telling him who I am and like that John was expecting me. And yeah, before I knew it, I'm on the ground, and it's hours later, and I hurt, and all my stuff's laying out, and that there's another dude down there. And what I found out from somebody else who reached out to me is apparently that other dude snuck up behind me, because apparently he was a Green Beret, ex-Green Beret, and he snuck up behind me and just gave me a whack over the head with a pistol. Well, the
our
other
ex-Green Beret is known for the sneak attack. Is that why?
I have no
Or was
idea,
it-
but apparently that is something that I was told about him. So that was certainly interesting. And anyways, I ended up with my ass kicked. And when I'm on the ground, Jimmy's on my back, holding a gun to my head at the back, telling me about how he hasn't. Oh, I shouldn't have said his name. Telling me about how he hasn't seen brains on concrete in years, and he was really itching to see it, and that it looked like some sort of pasta. And I guess he was in the Navy before, and he was just really itching to shoot someone.
Yeah, don't worry about saying his name. In the whole world, there's a big pool of Jimmys. It'll be fine.
Perfect. So then the other guy goes in Jimmy sends the other guy with me into the Jeep I was renting. I think he drove and I ended up the passenger, but it might have been the other way around. And actually, I think I can't even quite recall. I just remember my head really hurt. But anyways, he told me before I got in the vehicle that if I left, I would be shot. And that was when I really started panicking a lot more. And yeah, when I was left in the room there, I was really concerned about getting shot if I left, and about what would happen to me next.
And you weren't like ever like, I'm just here to do some coding, dude. What's up? Like you're pleased for like they didn't give you any indication why they were treating you this way. Nothing?
Oh yeah, they said something about a campaign of freedom in the ocean for the guy who was in the vehicle with me, and that was what really rubbed me the wrong way, because it suddenly made sense why John told me to pack all the clothes I own and get down as fast as possible, because he was going to do something involving his yacht and me, and I was probably not going to be able to leave after the point that I left that room and got on.
Ton of speculation though.
Well, not so much
I mean?
if you look at his Twitter, because he went and had his campaign of freedom where he ran for president in the ocean. And there was another person that he kidnapped named Jonah Lynn, and she got away. She got away when he stopped off at one of the islands.
Oh,
He had cell phone
really?
jams too.
Is that he went to prison for killing his neighbor in overseas or something, didn't he?
Nope, he got away with that. He went to
for
prison for tax. They got him for tax evasion and something else, but I think he was also wanted for security fraud. Illegal illegal altcoin promotion. Like he'd be like, everybody, I got the next Bitcoin, and he did this every day, and then people would buy it, and once it hit the value he was waiting for, he would sell all of his shares in it, and then it would plummet down to below worth a cent. And he did this same with the other people he was partnered up with in that house I visited, to all these cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, that's an old trick, eh? Like the penny stock fraud.
Yep. Yeah, that's.
I knew a guy that did that. I worked for a guy once in Quebec. I met him when I fraudulently applied for a job as a radio programmer even though I had never ever worked in the radio industry once in my life. And the guy was like, "Well, what's your experience?" And I'm like, "Well, I just wrote a dating website. I did all the content and everything, and it's meant to become like the template dating site for entrepreneurs in different cities and yada yada." And then all of a sudden, this guy comes out from like behind this curtain. This blonde, he looks like a surfer dude. Anyways, long story short, he gives me this job where I do what I just said for him, and he brings me to Quebec. And then it got really weird. He got he wanted to have sex with his wife with the door open because he knew I was like downstairs on the couch. And I'm like, I could hear him. I guess he didn't understand that his voice carried. So all I hear is this. Well, I mean, he'll hear, but he probably won't come up. Like that kind of stuff. And I'm like, so I know what it's like to work. And then he snapped one day and he became a little violent and, he owed me a bunch of money and yada, yada, put me on a train back to Toronto. And then I find out like a year later, he got busted with one of the most valuable penny stock frauds ever with some famous case in the United States or whatever. He's still in prison. You know what I mean? So anyways, the point is the eccentricities of some of these guys is weird because if you are an employee, I know that feeling at a smaller level with that guy. I only worked for him for like a week or whatever. And I know that feeling of just having to ignore the blatant fuckeries and the insane behavior that they can exhibit sometimes because you want to get your paycheck.
Yeah,
that's basically it.
You don't get paid if you point out that he's crazy.
No,
go for it.
But I'm curious because if I worked there, when I was in my 20s or 30s, I would have been like, Mr. McAfee, do you happen to have any cocaine? I could really use it. Did anyone ever do that? Or were you like, everyone knows better not to do that?
Oh, I didn't want to try any Mr. McAfee's drugs. I was warned by Bill Lishman not to do any drugs John McAfee offered me because he visited him once. And he
smoked a joint with us in Atlanta. Remember that?
Yep.
It probably had angel dust in it.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he put something in there, but
it happened to me. This is why I wanted to do this show because I'm like I can identify with John McAfee at a very minor level. But I moved to Los Angeles. I went to a party once. I was on the rooftop. My buddy hands me this blunt. I'm smoking it. I do like 3 rounds, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I gotta go. He's like, what? And everything was spinning and I was like paranoid and it was like crazy. It was like not even the first time I smoked weed, but like a baby smoking weed. That's how I felt. And I went downstairs and I always forget this guy's name, but he used to be a UFC fighter with the mohawk down the middle from like 15 years ago. Anyways, I ran into him because I had met him earlier and he's like, hey, Canada, what's going on with you? And I'm like puking. I don't know, man. Like if someone gave me a joint, I think it has something in it, blah, blah, blah. And so he gave a cab driver $100 so I could get home. But but never take a joint from anybody in the United States. That's just a rule I have now.
That is actually some good advice.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just too big of a country to know where you're going to get your stuff from. And like that shit, like the angel dust, because I found out that's exactly what it was. My buddy, I made a couple calls and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, how come it didn't impact you? He's like, I never inhaled ever when someone hands me something at a club. And I'm like, smart. That was smart. Yeah. But working for him as a drug user, I don't know, man. Like I'd probably get fired for soliciting narcotics from my boss. Like that's probably what would happen.
That's how you get a raise with him. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I guess that actually was with McAfee. I think if you got into with the drugs with him, I think you did better than if you didn't.
Jesus Christ, it's win-win.
Yeah, it was,
I don't know. I had lots of work to do, so the last thing I wanted to do was get hooked on some of McAfee's drugs. I'm sure they're really powerful.
Did you guys don't have to say anything if you don't want to. I don't know if you have like whatever, but like, do you guys ever are you drug users? Do you like just smoke weed? Like, is there any? Can you not say? Do you have probation officers? Josh, I'm looking at you. Just kidding.
I smoke weed all the time.
There you go. Okay, my man, that's good. What about you, Rob?
Oh, I quit weed. My wife kept calling it a narcotic, so I just eventually was like, okay, fine, I'll stop smoking it. 'Cause she's American.
I was just gonna
My
say
wife-
she's American.
My wife kept on calling weed narcotics too, so I just stopped calling her my wife. It worked out.
Oh
Yeah, thank you. I'll be here all week.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah. Listen, did he ever do psychedelics? Because that's really kind of what I'm interested in as a user now.
He gave me the most ridiculous stories about psychedelics ever.
Okay, I need to excite. I need. Who wants to go first? Josh, you go first. If you have
I
any
recall
psychedelic
one
ones.
time. So we worked at. We were in Durham, North Carolina, at the Durham Bulls arena. That's where we were, in the very top of that building. That's where our office was. And not far from there, on the other side of the ballpark, there was this little restaurant called Tobacco Road, and it was a good little place. They made they didn't know what a Caesar was, but they were able to improvise and make it work, which was good. But because that's a Canadian thing, right? You'd see, I want a Caesar, and they're like, what? But Bloody Mary is what they refer it to now. Bloody Mary with vodka, and that, that's, you get spicy. That's what you guys say that, and they can pull it off. But they had some good food there, and one of the times that McAfee was down, we were going to Tobacco Road to pick up some food, and he decided to come for the walk. It was him. There was, I'm not going to mention her name, but there was a young girl that worked, or young lady, I should say, who worked with the company. She kind of got involved on sketchy terms in the first place, but that's, I'm going to leave it at that. And I think she was 27 years old. Anyway, from what I understand, she came along with us, and it was during this walk where McAfee told me about when he tried, I think it was ayahuasca. Is that how you pronounce that, right?
Yeah, something like that, like ayahuasca. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna pop in to answer questions like that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's great, because I need someone with experience so to help me. So anyway. On the way there, he's like, he's like, you guys got to try ayahuasca sometime, and this, that, and the other. And I think he was more directing this conversation towards the 27-year-old girl, because I'm pretty sure, well, if you didn't sleep with her already, I think that's kind of what this whole conversation was getting around. Like, he was already fucked up on something before we left the office building, but, going on about it, he was just talking about his experiences with it, and, you go into like a sweat lodge type thing or something, and you pour it on the water, and you chew on this stuff, and then you're fucked up for like 2 days, and you have to throw up, and if you don't throw up, you can go to the hospital for like getting poisoned or something. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, there's something in the tea. It's like some sort of tobacco tea or something like that or an extract or something like that they give you along with it. There's a second liquid, and I could be getting this wrong. So don't hit me with email. You don't know anything about ayahuasca culture, dude. But because I don't. But there is two things that they take, and some people have the shits for like hours.
Yeah, that's what he said. Actually, he did. He actually was shitting himself. He woke up all fucked up in a puddle of his own shit, and just kind of brushed it off and went back to. And I think he did it the next day again too. That's what I think he said. He did it for like a month or something.
He just brushed it off. He just brushed the shit off his bed. That's it. He just brushed. I just shot him.
Well, I don't know. Just from how he said, from the way he put it, he kind of just got up, like he woke up in a pile of shit and pissed. Like he pissed and shit himself, and just kind of woke up and just.
He probably woke up and was like, "Oh, I must be under the hammock."
It's my turn today.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, I know he definitely liked all sorts of drugs. Like,
you know what's funny about ayahuasca though is that a lot of people who are addicted to other things like cocaine or something like that will do an ayahuasca trip to sort of reset them and sort of prep them for their path along sobriety or whatever. And then he does it and probably is just like, wow, that was rough, that ayahuasca. Let's fucking chase that with an 8-ball. Jesus Christ.
And then he just do it. Yeah, apparently he did it for he stayed there for like a month or two. He was just getting fucked up all the time on this. But yeah, I think he mentioned that he did say, now that you mention it, he did say something about like when you're supposed to do this to clear your soul and or whatever, before you purify yourself or whatever. But I think he just went and like anything John would do, he'd take it to the extreme, and now it's not. Now it's not good anymore. Do
you know if he did it? Because a lot of times people do it with like this little communal thing.
Yes.
Where they all sort of
Yeah,
go
it
to the
was
same-
there was some. I think if I recall, I think he said it was in Guyana,
Yeah, maybe somewhere like that.
something like
The
that.
reason why I asked is because all of the people that usually go there, I mean, there's some newbies, but usually the newbie goes with like their veteran friend who's done this before. It would be hilarious to see John McAfee invade the space with that type of vibe. You know what I mean? Because like it was like what I used to throw raves way back in the day, and I remember people thinking things like, "Oh, the rave scene is about to collapse." Oh, how do you know? Because I see like like hitting on girls that don't like it. And you're like, "Oh, culture's over." You know what I mean? Like there was always the one guy after a while when there was none before. John McAfee at an ayahuasca retreat is the most funniest thing I can think of. You know?
Oh, I don't even know. I guarantee it would have been probably really funny for everyone but the people at the retreat.
Yeah.
Well, for a while anyway.
That's what would be funny about it. It was really
How-
at their expense, the laugh. Right?
Oh, how many shit stained fucking sheets you want to change in a week?
I gotta say, my answer is none. You know?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a big 0 on that one.
But if you're gonna work at an ayahuasca retreat, then you're literally like in the interview, they're like, "Do you have a problem cleaning fecal matter?" You do. I'm sorry. This is not the job for you, Rob and Josh. No, I wouldn't take that job. The psychedelic part again is one of those things that makes me feel like this guy didn't have the ability to reset. Like, did he? Okay, that's an interesting question. Did you ever see him at a time where he was trying not to do any drugs? And what was that like?
Do that.
There were times where he was pretending he was not doing a lot of drugs.
Oh, it's just my allergies?
Yeah, like that, or the one time where he had a heart attack, and it was actually he did
that story way
probably
better.
fucking did a fat line of
Yeah,
meth or something.
okay.
Who knows?
Rob, you got that story, Rob?
You want me to do that story?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So this was relayed to me by a coworker. I don't have firsthand knowledge of this, and I thought he was joking until later when I found out I was out of a job and this was a factor in it. Okay, so they're at this meeting, and it's in Vegas, and it's the same time Freedom Fest is happening for the Libertarians. So John McAfee's supposed to meet with this financing guy. He's going to give the company some really good financing deal, where it's like a low interest rate and it's good for the company. It's a healthy financing. Everything's going to get better from doing this. So they're waiting, and he's supposed to be there at 10 a.m. So it rolls by about noon, and the big wig in the suit's still waiting there. And our other coworkers just trying to entertain him with stories of random stuff from where he's from. But he's running out of things he can say. He's running out of things he can do. And they're wondering where John is. So somebody calls his security guard. So his security guard, he's like, I can't tell you what's going on, but I'm going to do my best to get him out over there. And they can't get him. So what they do is they ask which hotel he's in and which room. All right. So they show up. And when that door opens, John's having a meth orgy is the words that were used to describe it to me. There's all sorts of people in there. And there's this blonde girl who's in charge of the whole thing. Now, there's all this crazy sex going on and drugs being done and everything. And John's fucked right out of his mind. And there's no way he's getting out of this because he's having like a great time. One thing he said too was the bath salts he did. They made him be able to go for hours.
Isn't bath salts just meth with a different branding? Isn't that
It
what
won't test positive for meth.
but everything else, it impacts you the same way, doesn't it?
Yes, it's supposed to be like a stronger version of meth.
Stronger than meth. Yeah. You know, this meth isn't strong enough.
Hey, when you get to 76, the meth starts losing a little bit of its edge after 50 plus years.
I don't know how to I don't know how one would survive being a meth addict for like a month even. Like, I did that line and was awake for 3 days. And well, that's enough. I was awake for 3 days. Just doing a line of meth. The ability to like smoke and snort meth more than once a year is amazing to me. Like how anyone can stand that. You know what he is? John McAfee, as far as I can surmise, is a lot of people, myself included, joke about, well, you know, if I ever got rich when I was still in my 20s or 30s, I'd be dead. That was true for John McAfee, theoretically. it just didn't kill him. But that's what happens when one of those guys like me doesn't die. They turn into John McAfee because
It's like
you know
it's like same blood type that Ozzy Osbourne has or whatever, where they can just do drugs forever.
that Rolling Stones guy there, whatever his name is.
Keith
you know,
Richards,
like,
too, yeah.
yeah, that's just it pickles them. It actually makes them, probably makes them stronger.
Preserves them somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
More energy than anybody else in the office.
Yeah, he's like, it's so. How long did you either of you work for them? Each of you?
About a year, and then he called me back out again. About a
Is that
year.
the kidnapping call?
Yeah. I was there to hide him from the CIA, apparently.
Why don't you come down here and take all your belongings? Maybe wipe the place for prints, and we'll see you here. Don't tell anyone.
He actually told me not to tell anyone, and I told like 5 people.
Yeah, good. Good. Yeah, we're just gonna go for a boat trip.
Yeah.
It's like the episode of The Sopranos. You're pussy in that
Exactly
situation.
what
but,
happened. He told me we were gonna get to go. Well, he told me bring everything. I found out when I got there that we were going on the campaign of freedom on the yacht. But he also, he told me everything I ever wanted was back on again, and that he was gonna tell me the truth behind what happened at where we worked, and he really wasn't a fuck up and a bad guy, and he was gonna tell me what really happened.
Oh, okay. But don't you think that he was spying on you, and he just was offended that maybe you were trashing him casually to your friend or something like that? Don't you think it was probably something like that?
No, I wasn't trashing him.
You never were like, dude, I don't. Fuck, McAfee's so fucked, dude. Like, you never did anything like that, even like.
I don't know if that.
How could you not?
That would probably he'd just be like, yeah, I am. Like McAfee, he just rolled. He didn't care.
Yeah,
he's just one of these guys.
Oh, and when
But
people
isn't this-
covered things
yeah,
that
go
were
ahead.
undesirable, he loved it. Like if people were like the poop hammock thing, he really secretly loved that. The Gringo documentary, he got so much more fame because that negative documentary and more media coverage than he ever could have without it.
Why? How is he depicted in that?
The poop hammock. Amy too talks about the things they do with the hammock for about an hour. He also talks about both the people he murdered when he was in Belize and a bunch of the other stuff.
He murdered 2 people in Belize? I thought it was just one neighbor.
No, the neighbor was American. That's why he mattered. There was a local who Mac 10 murdered, one of his security officers, that they just left dead, and everybody knew he murdered him. And it was, I think, an example to stop trespassing.
Oh.
It's in the documentary.
Yeah, I know. I remember something about that, but yeah.
He didn't have
And then
money. He cared about him for some reason.
Yeah, he was doing weird shit back then. He was posting stuff where it was like clearly he still had cocaine on his face, and he was like introducing his new intern who looked like he was more than an intern, like very pretty guy kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like it looked like.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's why I asked you in the first podcast that we did on Dean's show. I asked you because I've never read anything about this, but I'm like, this guy's bisexual, right? Like when he said he'll fuck anything he moves, like. Okay, he's ever.
Oh, we're not. He probably got fucked by anything that moved too. Like
the only reason that it matters to me as far as the context goes is because when you open up that meth drug orgy, now you're going to see a whole bunch more shit than you would have if he was just a straight guy, right? Like.
Yep.
I want to know what the company parties were like.
Oh, I do remember going to the strippers.
Oh yeah, one time with the strippers.
It was interesting. It was.
Did any women work in these offices?
Yes, but most of the very pretty ones worked remotely.
Yeah.
Oh. Were they actual workers, or did they have other special duties that they were hired for?
Oh, I'm sure they had special duties, and I don't know how much work it was. So, but they got paid very well. I can assure you.
Yeah, they got paid really well.
Hi, Cindy. Hi, it's Cheryl. Yeah, can we switch shifts? Okay. Yeah. Yes, it's the hammock shift, but wait, I'm gonna give you. You know what I mean? Imagine negotiating that shit. Oh man, one thing I can at least pat myself on the back for is that for all the drug stories that I don't have anything that involves my bodily functions being unleashed on any unsuspecting human being, which would just make me want to die. This guy seems like the rare combination of like I will risk everything all the time and be eccentric as fuck, and also I don't care at all.
That was pretty much it. That was it. Like he just did whatever he wanted. Like, you know, like I know like he did whatever. And if you were a friend of him, from what I understood, like, you know, a good tight with him, like the guy took it like, here, just take my airplane, go fly it, and then crashes and dies.
Yep.
Oh well.
What?
Yep.
Wait, hold on. What?
That was why he left America. He had this lawsuit where, okay, so John McAfee, you're supposed to have your pilot's license to go fly an ultralight, but not John's ultralights, not when he was in New Mexico. So at his yoga retreat, he had a whole bunch of hangars full of all these different ultralights. And what they do is they get all fucked up and then go fly these without pilot's license or without even knowledge of how to fly them. I have a video of one of them where a girl who's clearly on some sort of drugs lands one. And I believe she's on MDMA based upon how she reacts when they start cutting her clothes off after for an unknown reason. It cuts before you see anything, but you can tell what's going on. But,
wait, sorry. Was she like, or was she like, yeah, that's right, you cut those clothes? Like, which one was she?
She was super into it about how cutting her clothes. I don't even know. You have to watch the video. It was
That's like a rendition of the movie Crash, not the Academy Award-winning one, but the other movie Crash, which was about. The whole thing was about people who got off on getting in car accidents and then immediately having sex in the car. So this girl was like the adrenaline of not knowing what the fuck she's doing and driving a glider on MDMA, landed it. She's exhilarated. Her clothes start getting cut. That's like a kink thing. Don't ask me how I know about this. Moving on.
That would actually make a little bit of sense. But yeah.
Adrenaline. It's just adrenaline.
It certainly was something else, though. That was for sure. It was something else.
Yeah. I kind of wish he was still. Is it even plausible? It's funny that this man would attempt suicide.
Yep. If you sobered him up and he was sober for the first time in years, it definitely is plausible.
Just for the people who listen on Apple and Spotify who aren't not watching but just listening. I just posted a photo of John McAfee with him pointing a gun to his own head as a way of being a little bit snarky because he died by hanging himself in his prison cell. He Epsteined his way out. Is that kind of what happened? Yeah. Now, there are people who believe that it was just too confident in his abilities to fucking escape, for lack of better words. You know what I mean? Like, apparently he had the visions of grandeur that often centered around not being held accountable for the things he did. Yep. You know, like murdering people.
There is two other reasons why that might have happened. So nobody's seen the body, and they won't even let his wife see it from more than 20 feet away through a piece of glass.
What is he, the Pope? Like,
the fingerprints haven't been taken, and neither of the dental records. Now, John had a double named Donovan. He looked an awful lot like him.
Tell him about the body double. Yeah,
the body double Donovan. He looked an awful lot like him, and he sent him to the bar once when I was there just to fuck with me. But I knew he was a little off because his voice was a little off. But Donovan knew nothing about computers.
Well, maybe he's still alive.
Well,
like, what are the odds? What are the odds? Like, do you guys have any belief inside you at all that he might be still walking around this planet?
Barely any at all.
You know what though? But if he was, I wouldn't be really surprised. I'd be like, oh, I would definitely be scared if I was you, bro. If he is alive.
Oh, yeah, I'd be dying.
What country is he in right now?
He would have taken off probably to somewhere South America, like Panama or in that.
No. But where is the body that you have to look through a pinhole at 20 feet?
Spain. They won't give up his fingerprints or his dental records either, or his corpse, even though it's been there for like 8+ months now, which is what makes me think something suspicious is happening because the U.S.
Well, that's like. Excuse me. Do you guys have the quickest way to like just spread hysteria over conspiracy theory? Yes, I have an idea. And it's exactly what they did with John McAfee's body. I don't understand.
He did kill himself. Oh, I got to hit the button again.
Yeah. That button's not annoying at all.
Okay. So if he did kill himself, though, I think it would have been to try to activate his dead man switch. But luckily, I have an idea as to what's in it. But luckily,
what's a dead man switch? What's a dead man switch?
If he died, he had a way where he had put some information in very particular way on the internet that several of his ex-employees were aware of how to decode. Essentially, he would have called it decrypt, but the way it's implemented, I wouldn't really call it encryption because it's not the 70s anymore. But
Despite your haircut, it's not the 70s anymore.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't think I should say too much because people focused on these two buildings falling down that had nothing to do with it, and this other dude who was some troll, rather than the actual official effort that eventually ended. Because I think they got spooked that nobody paid attention to them, even though they were the official effort, and they kept getting their site denial of service attacked for where they were trying to put it up so everybody could just see it. But yeah, I'm not even going to mention what's in there. But there's.
I don't see why not. APOC, you keep on traveling in and out of dimensions, even on this podcast. You'll be fine. No.
No thanks. I don't think I should mention too much about what.
Okay, no, I'm just kidding. I don't want you to risk life and limb for something that you might, do you like? Okay. It sounds like a story of John McAfee's life has to be told.
Yep.
Right? Like it sounds like there should be. Do you know of anything in the works?
There's been a few. I was approached by one guy doing a documentary from England, but he didn't want to follow through with me, I guess, even though I talked to him on the phone twice.
Well, did you Zoom call him with your Matrix background? Because maybe you just weren't branding yourself.
No, it was just a regular phone call to a California number.
Okay.
He had a California.
You should have put some kale on the table as a decorative piece.
A little bit of tofu.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, there's that. There's also the one for his book. I still haven't read the book. There's an autobiography, I guess, where John embellished a bunch of stories and handed over some tapes to someone. All of his stories are different throughout every rendition of them, which kind of makes me think most of his stories were not fully accurate or truthful.
Yeah, I know people like that. Like, I think I actually used to be a person like that. I just wanted people to be entertained, right? Like that. My motivation wasn't sinister.
Is different for what happened to St. Louis when he did too much acid. The only thing that's common is that he let a talking dog drive his car. That's the only thing they all have in common.
I'm going to tell you something. I don't believe people when they say shit like that about psychedelics. Like when I said that thing about meth, I hope I conveyed the obvious, which is that meth is like something that invades your brain in ways that like cannot even be explained, and it's a psychological mind game. And so you try to retell the story as best you can, but I always do it like this. Okay, I know how it sounds, and I'm never going to do this drug again because of this, but here we go. But psychedelics, I've done hundreds of times. Okay, shrooms, peyote once, acid lots, and even if I did like 6 double blotters or something crazy like that, I have never ever like hallucinated things out of thin air. The hallucinogenics, especially with things like shrooms and acid, is like it's the way that the drug sort of like makes your brain interpret the way that life or light like fractures and stuff like that. And that's why with shrooms especially, if you look at a light and then look away and close your eyes, you can see whatever pattern the light was making over here with your eyes closed. And then when you open your eyes, you understand that the reason why the tree is being kind of weird and wavy in the distance is because the lens that you're looking through is impacted at the lens level. And that's why it's the light on your eyes that's making everything in the distance and in the foreground kind of go wobbly. But for it to invent things out of thin air, dogs that are literally driving cars, yeah, that's bullshit. When people say stuff like that, most of the time it's bullshit.
That's what I thought too. It sounded a little too coherent for hallucination.
One time when I was younger, I may have dabbled and I may have watched a wall breathe, but I heard it as well, which was kind of.
Yeah, well, that's still that is something I would say is like fairly typical. Mine was carpet fibers.
Really?
Same shit. They would wave.
Really?
You liked it. Yeah. And then you can interpret like a furnace in the distance or a fan in the distance as being the breathing noise or whatever the hell. You know what I mean? Like there are things that happen that they're like the conclusion seems almost obvious.
Yeah.
Dogs driving cars would
No, I don't know
require
about
an enormous amount of life fractures happening simultaneously when you turn over like this. So I think that blurb was a dog. It was a dog. And then you convince yourself it was a dog.
Maybe mix them all together. Who knows?
It offends me as a drug connoisseur when people do that. Like, just tell me what the drug really did. Like, why do you want a hero cookie for being as the most fucked up guy ever? You know?
I think he thought it gave him more street cred. One thing about McAfee is anything that he thought gave him street cred, he was totally into and just went as hard as he could into it.
Yeah, that a lot of public self-made people are like that because they want Trump was like that or is they rely on the perception of the image more so than who they really are as people. So if John McAfee is like, I did so much acid, man, that a fucking dog drove me home that night, people will be like, oh, that's just John McAfee. You know, like that's part of his brand, right? I think.
No, I'm what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something here. I got sidetracked.
Oh, remember when he was going on about how only a strong, proud black man like himself could play him in the movie, and then only Sam
I remember that.
could play him, and then
that's another like. I mean, is that a reference to his penis? Was he making a joke? Like what?
No,
what is that?
2 months straight, he was going on about how he was black, and he filmed a video with his wife where the N-word might have been used, and it made the shareholders really upset, and they started messaging on the discussion board all about how angry they were about John's choice of word.
He probably just wanted to say the word with impunity.
I know that my friend's mother, who used to live across the street where I am now, she messaged him because she had him on Facebook. She messaged him, said, "Oh, my old neighbor Josh is working for you," and he replied with, "Oh yeah, Josh, the Canadian guy. Yeah, I fed him to my dogs." That was something that he just to get a rise out of anyone, right? You know, she's an older lady too, so.
Yeah.
But just an idea of just, I don't know. He liked to get a shock out of people, I guess.
It'd be funny if she was like, Josh, I talked to your lovely boss and he said that he was feeding you God. I'm glad you're going to church on Sunday.
Hallelujah.
Was he a believer in that? Was he a believer in God? Or was he like because I figured he would either state, I'm an atheist, or I believe in God. Like he would state it.
He believed he was God.
He what?
I'm pretty sure he believed he was God.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. He was Jesus for computers. That's the very minimum that he believed at the very least.
He was a God among us, is what he believed.
Yes,
among his peers, and by that I mean people who are kind of like big names in the tech industry. Did they forget about his drug use? Did they respect his work?
Can you say it again?
Did his peers? Did they respect his work? The work that he did.
Oh, I think in his prime, I think he was a genius. I think he was very smart. Like, you know, he worked at Boeing and he did a lot of other things. He had a lot of employment with a lot of people. He met a lot of intelligent people. Like, heck, you like I said, you don't build something that Intel then buys off you for $400 million for, you know, you got to have done something. Yep. So, you know, he definitely impacted the world. Like, heck, he can't even, people that don't even know what computers are know what they've heard of McAfee. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just to make that kind of impact on the world. But yeah, I think that like maybe like Steve Jobs would have thought of him as like, yeah, this guy's a fucking drug addict and he's, you know, whatever. But like in the end of the day, he still was revolutionary. Like he made a huge impact, you know.
Plus Steve Jobs couldn't really do anything. He just walked around saying
stuff. You're right. Maybe Wozniak would have been more like, yeah, this guy's like Wozniak would have looked down on him and like this guy's a wasted talent is maybe what Woz would have said. Who knows?
Just been
Bill Burr has a good bit about Steve Jobs. He's like, I hate it when they give Steve Jobs his due, his credit. What the fuck did he do? He just walked into rooms with people that were smarter than him and were like, I want all my music this big. Do it. And walked out. You know, like, it didn't feel like he had any technical skill. He was just like a spokesperson.
To be honest, his quality control was interesting. Like there's stories of him destroying lots of prototypes of things just to see how they'd break so he could complain about them. Like the first time they gave him the iPod prototype, he put it in his fish tank and watched it bubble and then said, you see, I told you it was too big. There's still air in it.
Wow.
So that's something. Wow. One of the Mac laptops, they removed some of the screws in one of the newer revisions, so he smashed it to pieces just to show it would crack where he thought it would crack. It was he was that type of guy where he would just destroy things that people worked really hard on and be like, change this piece about it after it broke the way he wanted it to.
And he was so full of himself too that he was probably like, he throws the iPod in the fish tank and he's like, I get the iPod myself, but my skin doesn't penetrate water, you know, because he thinks of himself so highly. You know what I mean? Listen, guys, I know that it would take like a decade to talk about all the drug stories. I just really wanted to do a podcast where I didn't have to do any prep, and you guys helped me make that happen.
Oh, I'm glad.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I think it would be amazing. I'm glad I didn't work for him, because then I'd probably be dead in that scenario too. There's a whole bunch of scenarios where I would be dead, right? And having a lot of money or working with a guy who gave me endless amounts of drugs, probably not the quickest way to survival. But you guys made it, because you guys are not as weak as I am, and now you got stories to tell for days. So yeah, thanks for joining me, Rob and Josh. Rob, we'll talk soon. Josh, it was really nice meeting you, buddy.
Likewise.
And yeah, and thank you for coming. And yeah, we'll be in touch. Go ahead, Rob. What's up?
Link to the movie website, the johnmcafeemovie.com.
Oh, you have that URL?
Yep.
Okay, why do you have that URL? I fed you the softball before, but you never decided to take it, so I didn't want to pursue it.
Oh, I bought all of the John McAfee related movie URLs, even ones that are for other people's movies that I knew would be made into a movie one day.
Are you doing that to sell them to the studios, or are you doing that so that you can make a movie?
It's my domain name. No, I'm just if somebody wants to offer me like 50 grand for it, they can have it. But I want a lot of money for it.
Okay. Well, good luck in that endeavor. That's a lot of hard work you put into that.
Hey, I spent like a good several hours making that bad movie I made. I really want to do something with it one day. But
listen, maybe you will, dude. I think it'd be dope, because the best stories come from the people that no one knows about, and you know, you guys would fit that description in this particular scenario, and those are the best stories. The best stories are from the people that like aren't in the public eye, that work with people in the public eye, that are shit shows. And it's funny that you said earlier about you guys went to go see the Durham Bulls play, because before that, when I was thinking about the mustard on the shirt, the first thought that came to my mind was the fuzz on the shower sandals, and how in that movie Kevin Costner says to, I think it's Timothy Robbins or whatever, it's like you got fuzz, you got what do you call it, fungus on your shower shoes. He's like, so? He's like, you're not in the show. Once you're in the show and you win 20 games, then you can have fungus on your shower shoes. And in that scenario, McAfee, well, he's the shower shoe. That's what I think is funny about him.
The mustard sweater.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Okay.
Shit pants when he shit his pants. I don't know what drugs he was doing the night before. Oh, one time he comes into the office and he's got a suit for the upper half, and then the lower half's a tracksuit with gray pants. And he shit his pants at some point. And nobody wanted to be near him but me. That one was quite the experience.
Also very curious why you were the only one that wanted to be near him.
He was buying me. He bought me all I could.
Some questions.
He bought me so much
Rob?
food. Oh, he bought me so much food. It wasn't even funny.
So he bought you so much food, and based on that, you were like, you know what? He does smell like shit because he shit his pants, but I will stay near him and close by him because he bought me food. Is that?
You know what? I was a loyal employee. I just knew not to do drugs with him, and I knew that if I was loyal, maybe it would work out for me, but it really didn't, as much as it should have.
You made a decision to not walk away from what you would make him feel bad.
Well, everybody else was staying away from him, and one of the coworkers we worked with, she was all like going on about the Emperor's new clothes, and I was just like,
Could you smell shit?
Oh yeah, he smelled horrible. I don't think he even showered either. He might have even had shit his pants the night before.
I don't know if you are just the nicest guy ever. Like, I didn't want to make him feel bad because he smelled like feces.
Well, nobody else.
Or if you just over-strategize that particular situation and maybe like, you know, I don't have to sit here and smell feces.
Plus,
I can say something polite and walk away.
And I kind of wanted to hear him out.
I would be very distracted by the smell of poo. I'm just saying. All right, guys. Josh, Rob, we'll talk soon. Josh, nice meeting you, buddy. Thank you guys for the stories, and thank you for coming out. Yeah, I could have. I can't get past that last one. Yes. Oh, the feces smell was just awful. It was terrible. Did you move away so you didn't smell his feces? Oh, no. I stayed right where I was. It just seemed like the smart thing to do. Yeah. I the things that people do for, and I'm not really cutting up Rob. I'm projecting my own aversion from anything that has to do with other people's bodily functions. But yeah, working for someone who's like that is like another job on top of the job that you already have. You know, you got to know their idiosyncrasies. It would be helpful if you knew what drug they were on. Is he on cocaine? Oh, MDMA? Oh, that's a totally different approach. I think you guys need to let me handle this. But big thanks to Rob Rogers and Josh Kowalchuck for coming on to tell us those stories. On Thursday, we have from, I consider a legendary sort of Toronto band, God Made Me Funky. Their frontman, Fat Al. I think I've known Fat Al for about 20 years. He is dope. Yeah, we'll be on to talk shop, to talk what music industry was like, how it sort of pivoted and transitioned during the pandemic. And yeah, so we'll see you then tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Thanks for watching Blackballed.